Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to our channel. If you're new here, welcome back. If you're not, I'm so glad you're here. So let's get into today's video. In today's video, I am going to be showing you all of my favorite books that I have read this year. I think at this point I've read 16 and there's around maybe 8 in this video. So about half of the books that I've read this year. I want to start with the mystery thriller section. At the beginning of this year, I was reading a lot more mystery thrillers than normal. It kind of just reminded me of high school because that's mainly what I read in high school. But the first one that I read, I wasn't expecting to really like this book because it's definitely YA, but I read it so quickly. It's The Safest Lies by Megan Miranda. And I've heard of this author before. I've never read anything from her, but I've heard that she has some other pretty good books. This is a book about a girl named Kelsey whose mother has not left their house in 17 years or something crazy like that. She's so paranoid, but Kelsey doesn't really know why. Her mom's kind of told her things, but obviously from the title I think we can figure out that they're lies. So one day Kelsey drives off of a cliff and one of her classmates is a volunteer firefighter and saves her. And I will say that there is a slight romance in this book. After that, Kelsey is obviously on the news and stuff, and the next day her mother just completely disappears without a trace. So this book actually all happens within a day or two. It's a very fast-paced book. Like I said, I read it very quickly. It's definitely YA, but if you're looking for just a quick mystery thriller to kind of cleanse your palate, this is a really good one that I actually really liked and wasn't really expecting to. The next one is kind of the same thing. I just have had it for a while, and so I just wanted to read it just to get rid of some of the books on my shelf that I had not read. And this is Vanishing Girls by Lisa Reagan. I actually did not realize this before I started reading the book, but this is in a 19 book series about a woman named Josie Quinn who is a detective, and this is the first one of the series, thankfully. I will say that this one, I'm not really sure if it's YA because it got a little dark in it. There were some parts that it just took some turns that I wasn't really expecting it to take, which I think is why I liked the book so much. But basically, Josie is a detective, but she's actually suspended from her job right now for things that had happened in the past, couple of months or weeks. And one girl in her town disappears, and then weird things around her start happening. And so she's I need to figure this out. So she starts doing some detective work on her own, and then obviously the police department is stay out of it, but she doesn't really know why. So yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns in this book, and again, it's just a good book if you're I just need to read something a little bit quick. I will say this one did take me a little bit more time to get through. I do honestly, I don't know if the genre is YA, but I think this should be more of an adult read. I would probably rate this and the last one a 4 stars out of 5. The next 2 books are from Frida McFadden. If you guys have not heard of Frida McFadden, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where you've been. The first one that I read from her is one that I had actually heard Ava Jules say that she absolutely loves, and she loves Frida McFadden, so that's why I picked up any of her books. It's The Housemaid. I guarantee a lot of you have probably read this book. If you have not, absolutely go read this book. It is crazy. It is so good. This took a turn that I was not expecting at all, and maybe I'm just not good at figuring out. I feel like I say that a lot, so maybe I'm just not good at figuring out mystery thriller murder mystery books, but this one took a turn. Okay, this one was so good. This was a 5 out of 5 stars, 100%. I was just on the edge of my seat when I was reading this book. You should definitely read this. I have the second one and I have not read it yet, but I want to soon. The next one is also Frida McFadden. This is The Locked Door. I will say that I did not like this one as much as I liked The Housemaid. I think it's a 4 or a 4.5 out of 5 stars. But I read this one in 4 hours. Genuinely, I read this one in 4 hours, front to back, did not stop. I was on a bus going to a track meet. Yeah, so clearly it's a good book if I can do that. This is about a woman named Nora, and when Nora was 11 years old, she found out that her dad was a serial killer, and obviously that was traumatic and that affected her a lot. Fast forward to over a decade or two later, Nora is a I believe she's a surgeon. She is a surgeon and she is working at this like doctor's practice, and then all of a sudden, like, she doesn't think anybody knows who she is or who her father is because she changed her last name. But all of a sudden, again, like, weird things start happening and she starts getting threats, and her patients start acting weird, and her coworker starts acting weird. And it's just like all of these things start happening that remind her of her dad. So she keeps getting like flashbacks to her dad and like what happened after she like had found out he was a serial killer. So somebody's just like trying to frame her as a serial killer as well. And I wasn't really expecting, I think at like maybe 3/4 of the way through the book, I was like, oh, I think I know who it is. But it was still a good enough book that I like wanted to continue reading. I definitely recommend this. These are the only 2 books I've read by Freida McFadden, but I really want to read The Coworker and The Teacher and the Housemaid Part 2. Those are all of the books that I read in the mystery thriller category that I wanted to include in this video. Now let's move on to the romance category. But the first one that I want to talk about is the rule book. If you guys have not read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams, you definitely should read that one first. It is kind of like a standalone series. I honestly really like The Cheat Sheet. I thought it was really cute, but I might like this one better. I love Derek Pinder, okay? This male main character, I love him. I also really like the female main character in this one. So this is a sports romance. He is a tight end football player, and this is a second chance romance. So Nora and Derek were boyfriend and girlfriend in college, and things were getting pretty serious, and she was afraid that he was gonna choose his career over her because he didn't really care about school, and she did. And she wanted to become, like, she wanted to work in sports, but she didn't want to only work in sports because her husband was an NFL player. So she broke it off, and then like 10 years later, she is a big sports agent and he is her very first client, but she goes by a different name at the agency, and so he doesn't know who she is, and she just like doesn't want to ruin it with her first client. And so he's like, I'm gonna make her life terrible, I'm gonna make her quit, makes her go on a bunch of errands, but obviously she's like, no, I'm sticking to this. So she's like not getting sleep at night. And then they go to Vegas and wake up married. So like, that's all I'm gonna say about that one. I swear that that's all on the back of the book. I think part of the reason that I also really loved her character, she has a bubbly personality, but not to the point where it's like annoying. I know you know what I'm talking about when sometimes their personalities are like annoying in a book. But I think that I just related to her a lot in a lot of different ways. I would give this like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, but I definitely think you should read The Cheat Sheet first because those characters were also in this book a little bit. Moving on to the next one is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is the second book I've read from her. The first one was Love Theoretically, which is at the bottom of the stack, and I didn't really want to get it out. I also really liked that one. It was about a girl named Elsie who loves cheese, and I am also a girl named Elsie who loves cheese, so that was funny. But Bride, I think I liked better. I just don't know all the sciencey terms in her other books. This is her first like delve into fantasy, and honestly, I thought she did a really good job at it. It was a little hard for me to wrap my head around at first. If you didn't know, this is a vampire werewolf romance. I was going into it expecting it was gonna be like set in like the 1800s or just a long time ago, but this is like modern world. Like, she talks about her smartphones. She works at maybe like a cybersecurity company. She does something with like coding computers, and he is the alpha of the pack, and then she is a councilman's daughter, and they were just raised very differently. She was used as collateral with the humans. It's a little confusing. There's a lot of world building in this book, and I did get a little bit confused at some of the parts, but I just had to remember that it was in a modern society. And then years later, she's finally just living in the human world because she liked it better than the vampire world. Then her dad's like, no, we have to make a deal with the werewolves now, so you have to be married. So obviously she's not really happy about it, but she's like, okay, well, I'll do it. Like, I thought that the banter in this one was good. It was a very clearly one of those books that was like, he really likes her, and then she's like completely oblivious and thinks that he hates her. I'd probably give that one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next, I guess, like 3 books that I want to talk about, I read on Kindle. My first one is One and Only by Kara Sorensen. This one I just kind of like randomly found on Kindle, and I was like, oh, I might like this, and then I really liked it. It again was a sports romance. You guys can probably tell by now that I love a good sports romance. It was also a marriage of convenience, which is also one of my favorite tropes. Basically, the female main character has a dad who is sick and dying and probably not going to make it much longer, and one of his only dreams is to see his little girl be married. So it's a marriage of convenience for that reason, but he, the male main character, also has a daughter who, in order for him to get custody for, has to prove that he's in like a stable situation in his life. It's not like a custody battle in the way that like the parents don't like each other. The mom was involved in this book quite a bit and they had a good relationship, but she was getting remarried and moving to a different country, and so he wanted to keep the little girl for the whole summer, but he needed, obviously, like I said, to prove he was in a stable situation. And so it was just a marriage of convenience in that way. I love when a book has children in it. I really do, but only if the children also have their own personalities, and I think that the little girl in this book definitely did, and that's one of the reasons that I loved it so much. But it just was a really good, I thought that the tension between the two characters was like top tier. It was really good. And like I said, it was just another one of those books that I read this year that just kind of took me by surprise. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but I really liked it. Again, if you're looking for just like a cute little romance that has the tropes like marriage of convenience, that's a really good one. And then my last two books are from the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. I started reading this series honestly because her name's Elsie, and I'd seen the 5th book and I really wanted to read it. If you aren't aware of the Chestnut Springs series, it is, I think it's technically a standalone series, but I would definitely recommend reading it in order because all of the characters are in like every single book. I really liked the way that you saw the relationships kind of change and mend in a ton of characters throughout all of the books. You saw their personalities change when things happened to them, and I really liked how it was just like a family connection kind of. There are 5 books in the series, like I said. They follow 3 brothers and then one of the brothers' friends, and in the first book, the female main character, the 4th book, is about her sister. So it's all like family related, and I love the Eatons. Like, I wish I could be a part of the Eaton family. I will say that my 2 favorite books in the series are the 5th one and the 2nd one, which the 5th one is very controversial in that way. I've heard a lot of people say that they wanted more out of the book, or they were like expecting something different and didn't really love it. I really enjoyed it. I think it was maybe like the least spicy one, but there was so much tension and I loved it. You guys should just go look up like what all of the books are about. It's kind of a cowboy series. They all like live on a ranch. It reminded me of Heartland, the TV show, but like a little more mature, I guess. And I love that show. So I really wanted to read these books and I do not regret it. I found that Elsie Silver does a lot of tropes that might be like controversial. She does them well. There were a lot of tropes that I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and then I actually enjoyed reading the book. So don't be turned off by that if you like kind of read a synopsis of the book and then you're like, oh, I don't think I'd like that. Definitely just read the book and give it a try. So that's all I have for you guys today. I have so many more books that I want to read this year. I have like 2 piles right next to me that I am really looking forward to reading. If you guys have any book recommendations for me, I am always open to listening to those. Definitely drop them in the comments below. And also tell me what your favorite books that you've read this year have been. That's all that I have for today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!